The town of Stormford perched uneasily against the churning North Atlantic, its crooked streets veined with rusted rails and the salt-stained sighs of a dwindling fishing trade. There, among cottages turned skeletal by ocean wind and time, lived Ellis Stroud, an artist of rarefied sensibility and rigid solitude. His home, a weather-beaten studio on the cliffside path to the old lighthouse, was draped in seagrass and seclusion. Locals said he kept odd hours, and odder company were one to inquire about the shadows flickering behind his lozenge-like window panes at unwholesome hours. Ellis's notoriety had grown alongside his paintings, canvases drenched in nebulous seascapes lit by unnatural illumination he called sea light. He claimed his inspiration came not from daylight or storm, but from a peculiar threshold between waking and sleep he found only along the shore at night. Townsfolk whispered that Ellis could paint things before they happened: unmoored ghost ships, drowned constellations, scenes as though plucked from some abyssal memory not his own. Fame eluded him all the same. More than a desire, it had become a need, a gnawing ache that eroded as much sleep as the brine did stone. His canvases, while eerie and captivating, never found the acclaim or critical worship he endlessly hoped for. Art journals branded his style as dream-addled or schizogynous. Those who did buy his work were often odd collectors, speaking in circles and riddles, paying in coins Ellis swore were older than any mint should possess. Then came talk of the eclipse. A month before, a tattered visitor arrived by cargo steamer, staying only long enough to post bills around town. September 6th, the black mouth opens. One night only, printed beneath diagrams of celestial maps no one recognized. No astronomers confirmed its existence, and yet the people of Stormford could feel it growing near. The tide changed without moons, birds flew at dusk, and something beneath the waves hummed in voices without words. Ellis began to dream. In those midnight mirages, the sea peeled back like rotting fabric to reveal chambers carved in coral and bone, inhabited by shapes breathing in inverse rhythm. He saw a radiant maw blooming beneath the lighthouse, spewing out things shaped like both jellyfish and prophecy. In one dream, he stood atop those cliffs with brush in hand, painting with crushed starlight. In another, he awoke on the beach with salt-burned eyes and the taste of iron on his tongue. By the time the newspaper printed a one-line blurb, "Partial eclipse expected, no known solar alignment," Ellis had already prepared his largest canvas. He reinforced its frame, mixed a new concoction of luminous paints, and placed it beneath a tall drape. The dreams were more insistent now. He no longer searched for fame. He awaited it. And on the evening of September 5th, as gulls screamed and ships groaned in harbor against the pull of a low, blackening tide, Ellis stood barefoot before his easel. Behind him, the lighthouse blinked its eye against an encroaching sky. Tomorrow, he knew, inspiration would arrive, not from within, but from beneath. The morning of September 6th arrived under a veil of unease. For days, the townsfolk of Stormford had muttered uneasily about the eclipse foretold by no almanac, tracked by no celestial chart. The sun rose pale, bleached of warmth. By midday, it hung ghost-like in the haze. Ellis Stroud stood barefoot at the edge of the wind-struck cliffs, canvas propped against a cairn of wet stone. The lighthouse loomed behind him, black against the bleached sky. His brushes quivered in his grip, each stroke on the canvas shaky, aimless, until the light began to die. It happened all at once, The eclipse spread like bruising across the heavens, an oily void blotting the sky. The air turned syrup thick. In the silence, even the gulls vanished. Ellis gasped as the tide surged with impossible force. From the sea rose a phosphorescent foam, not of any earthly origin, and within it, movement. Elliptical light patterns, arcs of motion that defied logic. His brush shifted, as if guided by unseen hands. He painted, frantic, obsessed, unaware of time. Shapes unformed and wrong poured onto the canvas. Curves that bent inward, lights that emitted darkness, eyes with no sclera and mouths with no end. The sea howled. From its churning depths a body emerged, vast and glimmering like slick oil under moonlight. Shub-Niggurath. Its form pulsed with indecipherable limbs and shifting mouths, birthing its own color. The eclipse burned red above it, casting the sea in a meaty hue. Ellis's breath came short. His knees hit sand. All thoughts of fame were gone. There was only awe, then screaming terror. The canvas disintegrated in his hands. A voice, or voices, bubbled through the surf, not heard but understood. It sang of ancient tides and creation undone, of Ellis as seed and shepherd. It welcomed him. In the waves, something glinted. His eyes, bloodshot from effort, fell upon a hilt protruding from the sand. He reached, half-conscious, fingers wrapping around the frigid silver. The object pulsed in his hand with a dreadful clarity. A dagger, not ornate or ceremonial, but ancient, practical. It was as though the thing in the sea recoiled, if such an eldritch god could recoil. Its lights dimmed a shade. The eclipse shifted, ever so slightly. Ellis stood, swaying. "What are you?" he murmured to the impossible form, to the lights, to the sounds between stars. The whispers only he heard. No answer came. Only impressions. Images of epics lost. Shrines under rivers. Worshippers eyeless and wet. And Ellis, crowned in salt. His grip on the dagger tightened. The whispers wavered. Something told him the blade was not meant to kill, but sever. Above, the final sliver of sun vanished. The eclipse was complete. And Ellis Stroud, artist, pawn, prophet, ran toward the blackened lighthouse behind him, silver in hand, canvas ash on the wind. A briny wind gnawed at Ellis Stroud's cheeks as he staggered from the roaring cliffs, eyelids stitched with salt and madness. The image still throbbed behind his eyes, a birthing god, unfurling above the sea like a wound of light and hunger. The silver dagger pulsed in his shaking grip, cold as moon metal, almost humming with intent. He stumbled toward the lighthouse, the only shape that hadn't changed in the eclipse's false night. Behind him, unseen yet all-consuming, Shub-Niggurath's aberrant form blotted the sky. Great tendrils of phosphorescent fog pierced the ocean mist with obscene elegance. Blood-warm wind carried whispers not meant for human ears, and still Ellis heard them clearly. They crept inside his mind like paint through wet canvas. They will chant your name across constellations not yet born. Bow and become eternal. Ellis clutched his temple, breath ragged. The words tasted like brine and rot, yet glowed with intoxicating truth. The vision surged once more. He saw paintings hung in temples beneath alien suns. His own signature etched in basalt across eons. Eyes, too many and too vast, beheld his work in reverent silence. With a scream that curdled in the wind, Ellis pushed through the rusted door of the lighthouse. Dust choked the spiral stairwell. The paint peeled in long gray curls, and strange etchings covered the walls, scratched not in ink or soot, but something gleaming and black like congealed ink from a cephalopod's maw. Halfway up, he stumbled into a chamber just large enough to kneel in. The air here reeked of age-old oil and fear. A journal lay open beneath a cracked pane of glass. Its pages, damp and brittle, trembled faintly in time with some unseen rhythm. Keeper Amos Willoughby, Ellis read aloud through cracked lips. September 6th, 89. The blooming comes again, light that thinks, eyes beneath waves. I've salted my skull. The dagger sings when the god arrives. Ellis's eyes widened. Images of a gaunt man wielding the same dagger flickered behind his thoughts. Another supplicant, an artist of devotion rather than canvas. Whispers joined Ellis's breath, now tuned to the storm of minds he couldn't see. The next entry chilled him more. Cut the hand. Break the brush. That which cannot paint may not praise. The dagger flickered in response, its silver blade momentarily blinding in the low light. Ellis sank to his knees. His hand, the one that painted dreams and sin, tingled now, foreign and hot, streaked with an iridescence not his own. He knew then, the god had begun to claim him through his gift. Yield, Ellis Stroud. Be the eternal artisan. They shall forget Da Vinci for you. Visions clawed at his sanity, cities spiraled in geometries no mind could bear, galleries lined with canvases screaming in colors that bled. He saw himself painting, forever, his own body a brush in the hands of a thinking darkness. Teeth clenched, Ellis rose. The stairs beckoned, higher still. Above, the lighthouse's dome awaited, the final gallery. He ascended, silver dagger in hand, knowing what must be done. Yet behind him, threaded through rising wind and shifting stars, came one last whisper, softer than breath, crueler than truth. The hand is only the beginning. The wind howled across the cliffs of Stormford as Ellis Stroud ascended the spiral stair of the lighthouse. Each step up brought him closer to the harrowing radiance pulsing from the monster that had risen from the depths. The walls around him flickered with impossible hues, cast from the eye-searing entity outside. Shub Niggurath, the black goat of the woods, glowing with maddening phosphorescence like a night-born sun. Below, the sea boiled, the shoreline broken with shrines of warped coral and weeping fissures of black stone. The townspeople, disturbed from their homes, gathered in silent awe and shrinking terror. Some fell to their knees. Others tore at their own faces, blind with visions not meant for mortals. Ellis reached the top, the silver dagger heavy in his coat, still glistening though untouched by light. He emerged into the lantern room. A final gust nearly toppled him, but he gripped the rust-bitten rail. The eclipse, unmoving and grotesque, devoured the sky, a hole chewed in the heavens. At its nadir throbbed the deity, enormous and formless, save for antlered limbs and eyes that hatched and blinked within themselves. The voice rose again, a pressure in Ellis's skull more than sound. "You will be known," it murmured, "a god's muse, a seed in the mind of time." Ellis nearly sobbed. His knees buckled. He remembered the journals discovered below, the lighthouse keeper who'd once heard the same call, whose bones Ellis now knew lay beneath the lighthouse floor. And he remembered the same promise whispered, fame unending, legacy eternal. He unsheathed the silver dagger, its blade inscribed in shifting runes. The writing shimmered like trapped stars. The moment was clear. He placed his painting hand upon the cold metal ledge and raised the silver edge. A scream belched from the sea. The god sensed it. The offering. Ellis brought the dagger down. Agony flared red and immediate. Blood coursed over rust. He collapsed, cradling the ruined stub of his hand. The dagger clattered beside him, steaming. Below, the waves convulsed. The solid air shattered into echoes. The massive form dimmed, cracked with fractures of black from within. The eclipse shuddered, then receded like a shadow in reverse. The stars returned. The light returned. And Shub-Niggurath was gone. Ellis never painted again. Days later, searchers found him unconscious, cradled beside the extinguished light. His mind had not fractured entirely, though it refused certain questions. They whispered of his act, of the thing he'd driven away. Fame found him eventually, not for his grotesque paintings, but for his silence. He lived, disfigured and distant, in a cottage where the sea never reached and no light touched the canvas again. The silver dagger remained beneath glass in Stormford's museum, its runes lifeless. And when the townspeople spoke of that cursed eclipse, they used his name not with reverence, but with fear. Not glory, but warning.